What's up, guys? Welcome to the Wonders podcast. We're here at the midst of having no time, but we're still making it work. I'm here. And once again, I'm Retro Loneliness, or Nick, and I'm here with Jared from Midnight Labs.
What's going on, everyone?
Alrighty, to kick things off today, we have quite an interesting list of topics. But to kick things off, we have recently the Sony State of Play revealed that Street Fighter, the last of the roster for the Street Fighter 6 characters that are going to be launching with the game, and the Resident Evil 4 remake, among other games. What is?
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course. So you brought this up to me. What did you think of the last of the characters that were revealed?
Um, well, it was during the Sony State of Play, and they showed off Zangief, Cammy, and a new character who um, is a new addition named Lily. But am theorizing might take after T-Hawk's moveset. I don't know if it's confirmed or not, but I heard that a lot of the newer characters are going to embody some of the movesets of older, more familiar characters. And Lily looks like she could be one of those, but who could say for sure?
Yeah, I think it's great seeing the older characters come back, but it is also a real shame seeing the older characters being sunsetted almost. With the rendition of the new ones. Like there is like the characters that I know or that I see pulled up on a tab is like we have series veterans like Ryu, Chun Li, Guile, Juri, Blanca, Dalzim, E Honda, Ken, DJ, and Zangief, of course. Oh, and Cammy. But one of the newer characters they're talking about is Lily, and her moveset. Actually, from reading it from GameSpot.com, they're saying that Lily is actually a descendant of T-Hawk's Thunderfoot tribe, who uses war clubs and spiritual powers to give her an advantage in battle. The Condor Dive, Condor Spire, and a Tomahawk Buster, where are some moves that are similar to T-Hawk's. If you,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, the last time T-Hawk's I believe has been present in a roster in Street Fighter was Street Fighter 4.
I really liked playing T-Hawk in 4. He was one of those, takes up a lot of space kind of characters, but, his grabs were brutal.
Yeah,
They
I
were
agree.
devastating.
He was someone who would I believe would be on par with Zangief, which is cool to see him return. Honestly, I don't think a Street Fighter game could ever be a Street Fighter game without Zangief.
Street Fighter, I agree completely.
Yeah,
he read Cyclone.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like the main characters of all that have always persisted have been the titular ones like Ryu, basically from the Street Fighter 2, right? From Ryu, Ken, Guile, and Zangief, Chun Li, and Cammy. But it's cool seeing I don't know if Sakura is coming back or maybe later on, but Juri has been like one of the newest characters that has been a new mainstay in the series. The first game she actually made an official appearance in was as a DLC character for Street Fighter 4. So it's been cool that she's become like a fan favorite among people.
Yeah, she's pretty popular, and I've always been a fan of her theme, specifically.
Okay.
And their updated themes for 6, I think they're pretty good. They're not as good as 4, but I don't think how would they be better than 4? You know what I'm saying? But I'm happy with all the new music they've attributed to the characters as well. They've kind of put a modern sort of pop aesthetic twist to everything, while trying to retain, I think, what composes these characters. And I like everything I've seen so far. I think Zangief and Cammy look great.
See, yeah, I think all the characters look lifelike. The only character that looks kind of uncanny valley to me has been Chun Li. She really looks like a character from Dead or Alive, that really raunchy game with the tits and the asses and all that. But aside from everyone else, even Cammy, has been cool. I would like to see other characters come back as DLC later on. Oh, like especially I like Guy. Guy is cool, but I think Guy is being replaced with like Kimberly. Um,
I see.
yeah, cause her move set has been very similar to Guy's. Guy has been in Final Fight. He initially
Oh
started in
yeah.
Final Fight, and then he became a Street Fighter character. I think
I
he's
guess in the lore, she's actually trained by Guy too.
that's cool. That's what's up. Yeah, there you go. But yeah, what do you think is the like the shortcomings that Street Fighter 6 has to make up from Street Fighter 5?
Um, a complete game on release would be awesome.
Really? What do you mean by that?
I mean, they shouldn't do what they did with 5 and have a very little content on release.
That's true. I think 5 only got good when they finished making it or like releasing content for it.
Like, it did get good, but, it took a while.
Yeah.
And then there was, like, a quote-unquote story mode that was there on release that was pretty much just slides of, like, comic-esque slides. And then later they were like, hey, guys, now we're adding in the story mode with, like, the cutscenes.
Kind of lazy from Capcom, to be honest.
Yeah, but I think the 6 is already confirmed to have like character customization, like a semi-open world element. No, um, so it looks like at least they're putting a lot of stuff forward and showing a lot more than they showed with 5 at this point in time. I feel like, but maybe I'll be eating my words. Who
Yeah.
knows?
I like the way they updated a lot of the characters in Street Fighter 5, especially with the V trigger like system that they added. And because I remember in Street Fighter 4, you had it was the super meter and then the ultra meter where you had the
Yeah,
option of the two to do either execute like really crazy combos or like an upgraded regular combo. And if you were to save up all your meter, you would have the ability to use that as a super, like a ultra combo or either or. The characters I would like to see come from Street Fighter 5 to 6 would probably be like Rashid. Rashid was a really cool addition with his wind style of moves.
I liked his moveset.
Yeah,
It felt fluid too,
he
playing him.
was really fluid. Seriously, his mobility was amazing. Let's see. They're probably gonna add Balrog eventually. Um, Balrog is a necessity. I got really good or like proficient with Sakura. I like Sakura. I think she's also like a serious mainstay in so long.
Yeah,
The one character, and then they added Luke from Street Fighter 6 to 5 as a like early on. Akuma. I mean, there's just like a ton of like what characters that you haven't seen in Street Fighter 5 that you would like to see in 6?
well, I guess T-Hawk's off the table. um, but let's see. They've got Blanca, E Honda. I'm pretty happy with the roster, honestly. Um, I'm even looking at the images for the SF6 fighters, and didn't you say the other day like Ken looked like angry?
Yeah,
Like,
he looked blocky and like angry and shit.
he looks pissed off in this the slide they're using for him.
Dude, I would like to see Dudley come back. Dudley would be cool.
Dudley with the stash.
Yeah, Dudley would be cool. Fei Long again.
He always came dripped up.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know if I'm pretty sure Guy's not coming back. Hakan from Street Fighter 4 would be cool.
Dude, doesn't he have like those craters on his shoulders and it creeps me out?
He's the red guy that would oil himself up.
Yeah, what I never like considered this as much as I feel like I should have.
Yeah,
What fighting style is this?
no idea. I don't. So they added Seth in 5 too. They also added the Yang brothers, the Young Yangs. So maybe cool seeing like one of those guys return as well. That would be sick. Sakura would be tight. Uh, Makoto as well, and Ibuki. I would say would be my picks for coming back, as well as Cody. Cody's sick as fuck. White boy summer, you know.
I can't say I disagree
Yeah.
with those picks.
Do you think they're gonna make DiCaprio as well come back from Street Fighter 4?
Who from Street Fighter 4?
DiCaprio?
Are you... I'm not familiar with who that is.
She's like a like Terminator like version of Cammy.
Is she a DLC character?
I think so. She's like a blue version of Cammy with like a mask on.
I see. No, she looks cool though.
Yeah. I think the moving forward from Street Fighter 6 characters, I think the most notable thing that they're doing with like is that they're making all the like veteran characters seem like masters. And then as you can make your own character like at whatever proportions you want, and then you could train under them. And so you could essentially learn all the moves from each of the characters. So you could combine the like Ken's like arts like fighting style with like Chun-Li's or like Guile's and see. And I mean you could do a ton of things. Just like they're bringing customization to the character, which is gonna be cool.
See, that's just a fun idea on its own. Like, I haven't seen how that's going to or has played out, but it feels like you can't really go wrong there in having fun with at least experimenting with that idea. But once again, time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell. Hopefully, the servers are running still. Will continue to run for 4 and 5, like as like Street Fighter 6 like rolls around. And
hopefully.
Then, yeah, and then also another notable addition to the Sony State of Play was the Resident Evil 4 remake gameplay. I thought that was really interesting what they're doing with it.
Oh yeah, that and the Street Fighter 6 reveal were probably the highlights of that State of Play.
I agree.
And yeah, that showed a lot of cool gameplay for the upcoming RE4 remake. I never fully completed through the original RE4, but it looks like they're making quite a bit of additions as well than just remastering the game. We might have brought this up before and talked about how there might be like side content and additional quests and such, but this new footage also suggests that there may be more interactions with the character Lewis. And people are excited about that, at least in this comment section. But I think that's a fun idea, that established characters in older games getting more importance in remakes, especially when you have the technology to do it.
Yeah. It seems like they're already changing like some aspects of it. Would you think that they're changing it or updating it?
I would hope updating more than anything. I do know we kind of scraped over they did change how the knife works.
They did.
So there are fundamental changes and shifts in certain areas, but I think it's probably looking like it's headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
As in, hopefully it's a less like frustrating experience in terms of gameplay and controls.
I think they're just nerfing the shit out of Leon, because I remember in the original one, the knife was like, fuck. All right. It was knife roundhouse. Because the knife had unlimited, like, was it unlimited? I feel like it had an unlimited amount of uses, right? But in the new one, they're making it so it has a durability where you could parry attacks or finish off like fallen enemies. But however, each time you use it, you reduce the durability of the knife. So I maybe you get more knives, or maybe that's like the one knife you have and you have to just conserve it for like the entire game.
I guess that combined with your earlier statement, that makes me wonder if it's like if it's meant to somewhat prohibit going through the whole game, knifing and roundhouse kicking everything.
Yeah, I would do. Yeah, that's what when the Resident Evil 4 remake came first was announced. That was the first thing I was thinking. I was like, I'm just gonna roundhouse kick the fuck out of everything with the knife. Let's see. Yeah,
But yeah, I'm hyped for it.
yeah, hype for it. It looks good. The graphics look great. They're up. It looks like they're up using. They're not using the same style of like character model for from the original Resident Evil 4. That he's not like pretty boy Leon from 4 anymore. He like he's
Yeah, and
still.
even say he looks a little different than he does in two, like the two remake.
Yeah,
Um, but maybe just a little bit.
they definitely updated like Ashley. Ashley's completely different. If you were down if in the on the official ResidentEvil.com website, where you can see all the characters, you can see how they updated all the new characters. Like the Chainsaw Villager, the Villagers, Mendez, the Sets Saddler, um, yeah, all the new characters are insane.
Yeah, it's
Um,
wild. It only gets looking better and better.
yeah, they're making. I don't know what they're doing, but like fuck. Let's
To me, it
see.
looks like the models are so, even with the monsters too, are like perfectly updated in the right direction, where it's detailed enough where the grotesque translates a lot more. You know, it's a lot grosser seeing these monsters with higher quality looking flesh and distorted bodies.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool looking at Jack Krauser. He's like one of the regular human enemies that you face, where he's like a mercenary that's trying to kill Leon. And maybe we'll see Wesker. Maybe they'll change it so you'll see Wesker. But if you were to like Jared, if you were to look at how they changed Ashley, they made her like more modest looking. In the
Mhm.
original Resident Evil 4, she had like huge knockers and shit like that. And
That's
then
not really surprising.
yeah, and then but I mean it's okay. I mean with the times and I personally prefer this coat of paint over Ashley than the original one. Definitely.
Yeah,
It's
even her body language is a little different for her default character model. Like she's even more reserved. Like her arms are close to her. She's kind of cowering in the 2005 model.
yeah.
And
It's
this one, she's like all poised up. She does look sophisticated.
you think she's gonna be like Leon? God. And then they have the sections where you put her in a suit. Ah, fucking hated those. And then moving past like the biggest two announcements from Sony State of Play, we had we had two games that recently released. We had Atomic Heart and Sons of the Forest, but Jared, you've bought the game, you played the game. What is the Sons of the Forest and how is it?
Oh yeah, well, following in line with the survival horror genre, Sons of the Forest is a sequel to the I want to say 2016. Don't quote me on that, but 2016 game The Forest, which was in early access for a very long time, but upon full release, was pretty fairly acclaimed among Steam users. But now this year, Sons of the Forest dropped. I picked it up. Was thinking of maybe making a video on it, and I only discovered when purchasing it that it is also still in early access, which I was under the misconception that it would be full release. That being said, following in line with graphics updating, adding to tension, I think the game looks beautiful for an early access game, especially. Um, I've only experienced minor bugs, like seeing some birds float through terrain, like it doesn't impact them at all. Losing my footing in certain areas, and especially the camera getting messed up when trying to switch between my inventory and going into a crawl space. But ultimately, it's a survival horror game that follows the name. Uh, have you ever heard of like the concept of the forest outside from it just being about surviving on an island?
Well, the story, well, whatever semblance of story it has, takes place when you first load up the game. I mean, you're on an airplane and then like someone hijacks it, or like Mother Nature was like "fuck you," and like and you just crash on the island and everyone dies except you miraculously. And then like
You're
you have a
yeah.
child or some shit, right?
Hmm.
and the child gets abducted by some asshole, and then you're basically building like rafts and like entire cities and like the Mount Everest, and all while your child is still like kidnapped or some shit, and it's your job to find what happened to it, or find out what happened to it.
You're on the money.
Yeah.
What's interesting is the original Forest plays with that introductory element as a hook, but you quickly discover that, what I think draws people to it as well over other just like survival games are the cannibals that infest the island and the monsters that live in the caves. I don't want to spoil the plot, but essentially there's a reason why there's all these different creatures on the island, and there's a reason why the plane crash happens. But what surprised me is that now in the sequel Sons of the Forest, it seems like this is kind of pre-established information. I haven't beaten the early access copy yet, but it opens and you have a team. You're going into the island as a team of helicopters, and you're on a mission to rescue a wealthy family.
God damn.
So I think there's an implication that the character you're playing as in this sequel may already know a bit about this island, and that's just not directly communicated to you yet. So consider me interested in how this turns out. But in addition to that, they added an NPC character to kind of emulate the multiplayer experience even when you're by yourself, which is really useful because you can command him to do things for your survival, to help like gather food, cut down trees, build stuff. And yeah, it's been a good time so far, and it has been creepy in the best way possible.
Haven't there been bugs with that fucker? What's his name?
With the game?
No, what's the name of the guy's name?
Oh, I honestly don't know.
Okay, let's just call him Dan. So like, what's wrong?
Yeah.
What's up with Dan? There's been like a lot of memes and like jokes and like glitches with Dan.
Well, I am going to back up what you're saying there because I'm not entirely sure how his behavior functions yet, and I'm wondering if I'm supposed to be this confused or if I've been experiencing bugs. He won't come into caves with me, which I'm assuming is a built-in feature because that's where all the dangerous stuff is. But I'll often find him circling the area around me instead of sticking by me after I issue a follow command. And he can wander sometimes. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But yes, I don't think it's like a perfectly functioning system yet.
I remember seeing videos of glitches where the character would, if you were to create your treehouse, your base has a treehouse, and you were to make the guy Dan or whatever, like chop wood. If you had your house on top of like as a treehouse, right?
Yeah.
The Dan would still go ahead and like chop the tree that was holding your treehouse.
And it would destroy the house?
Yeah, he would destroy the house. With everything in it, yeah.
Well, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I wouldn't remove that if I was them.
You wouldn't?
You dug this grave. Well, if you command him to do it. What would suck is I haven't even tried it. I haven't played like with anyone, but I wonder if that's something you would be able to do in multiplayer. Is because I'm fairly certain the NPC still exists even in multiplayer. Yeah. Which probably leads to a couple other bugs. But yeah, still in early access. But also, just like the first Forest, and I think this is just a good practice in general as a game developer, is they, on the main menu screen, they have a timed countdown that shows you when the next update is releasing.
No way. That's actually cool.
Down to the second. Yeah.
I guess it holds the developers more accountable for the amount of time it takes for them to update shit. Because with like the history with open like early access games is like they make this game that's like kind of finished but not really, or like could use a lot of polish, and then they're like, all right guys, the update's coming in but much later, bro. And it's like, ah damn it, man, I want to enjoy your fucking game.
Yeah, and yeah, it removes that like the slight the tiny amount of queasiness I feel like when playing an early access game that I really enjoy, wondering if it's ever gonna get an update again.
No, seriously, yeah. Like often a lot of early access games feel like they've been abandoned and like, and people are just wondering like, what the fuck's happening?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's good reasons for it sometimes, but oh man, I'm glad we're out of the era of uh, Kickstarter scams taking off, or not even scams, even genuine ideas that got really popular and then dropped later.
Are you talking about the um? Oh my god, are you referring to what's that one game? Star Citizen?
Um, Not specifically, but that sounds like something like this is a thing that happened a lot. Like I feel like from like 2014 to 2018.
Yeah, I understand that. And then another game that has been like kind of just like it's kind of been like almost basically got bombshell news in like the PC sphere is that like according to Forbes, like Counter Strike 2, the like from this prolific game Counter Strike that has been around since 1999 as a mod from like Half Life has is now getting a sequel. Now, who knows if it's gonna be like Counter Strike, like Global Offensive 2, or if it's just gonna be a straight sequel from the original one from 1999.
Yeah, that's exciting stuff, and it feels like it kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, which is insane. Because for the longest time, like there was only Valorant. Well, no, nowadays there's Valorant, right? Um, but if you wanted to play something that has been around for a long time, if you're not talking about like the Quake like side of gaming, you would think about Counter Strike. Like there has been Counter Strike Global Offensive, Counter Strike 2, Source. I don't know if I count that as a game. Um,
I think this is kind of it's on the Source 2 engine, this new one. So I think it would be inadvertently like Counter Strike Source 2.
that would be
Um,
insane.
but they're just calling it Counter Strike 2.
Yeah.
Either way, it's good news, and I don't want to jump the shark on that, but um, apparently there may be a beta coming soon for Counter Strike Global Offensive 2, which is this would reignite. It feels like a huge wave just in the whole community because that's uh, essentially two new games
Yeah.
and after years of nothing. But like we've been noticing recently, Counter Strike Global Offensive is hitting peak player counts, like for the past few weeks. It's been happening intermittently. I feel like it would be like a random day of the week, and I would just see, oh, Counter Strike Global Offensive broke its record again for concurrent players. Wow, I can't believe this is happening in 2023.
Yeah, well, that goes to
But
show once again that a game as timeless as Counter Strike Global Offensive is often one where a developer actually gives a shit about the game for once. You know, let's see if Counter Strike 2 comes out the same way. According to Forbes, they're saying that Counter Strike 2 will feature 120 tick servers, which is something that the CS:GO community has been wanting for years, as well as an updated matchmaking system that would be closer to what external services such as Face It currently offer. Um, I don't know. It sounds crazy. I don't really know. I am not really familiar with Face It though.
face it.
Yeah, it's an esports platform founded in London. I got it. I
Mm,
picked it up. So yeah. Oh, so it would be easier for people to go pro with CS:GO too then.
I see. I wonder if that's gonna like bring in a whole like flow of new people trying to commit themselves to that.
Yeah, and the one problem that I see in the future though with like running CS:GO 2 is that it's on an updated engine, right? And if you what do you know like off the top of your head the minimal spec requirements for CS:GO like first?
CS:GO is like it can't be that much. I've been able to play it on pretty much every system I've had. I even played it on the old 360. So the 360 could run it fine.
Yeah, you could run it with an Intel Core Duo, like or an AMD Phenom
Oh yeah.
X37 with just 2 gigs of RAM. It is such a like low end game. Oh my god! So like it's gonna.
Explains its popularity. I feel like
Yeah,
that's
it's
a
so
big part.
accessible to people. It's like you could run that thing on like your laptop, your home computer, your toilet. You could run it on anything. It's almost like Doom but multiplayer.
Could probably run fine on a phone.
Yeah, it could really run fine on a phone. Counter Strike, Global Offensive, Go, like Pokemon Go. Um, but it's yeah, so it's gonna it's so for people that with lower end PCs, so you're gonna need to upgrade to probably play the game.
Yeah. And it's good to see like accessibility increase over time with games, especially in both single player and multiplayer.
Yeah.
Um, but maybe the two shouldn't always intermingle. Like in the case of always online services and single player games. How do you feel about those?
Shit. Um, you're probably referring to Suicide Squad,
Mm-hmm.
the game which has actually been another one of the Sony State of Play announcements where they showed gameplay for that, and a lot of reactions have been very mixed, but like on the lower end of things. Why do you think so, or why is it?
Likely the always online attribution. At least that's what it is for me. Um, but also the trailer that was shown off most recently, it looks fun. It looks campy. It looks like it has personality. But to me, it kind of just looked like generic third-person shooter gameplay so far. I feel like the unique attributes of the characters weren't capitalized on as much. But hopefully, they're holding back um, stuff that's in the game.
Yeah, the game feels a lot like Anthem or like Marvel's Avengers.
Oh yeah. You mean like the 2021 Marvel's Avengers?
Correct. Yeah,
Wasn't that also an always online service?
it was. Yeah, it's
I see.
drop in, drop out kind of. It feels like I remember when we were talking about this as we were making like what we were gonna talk about for this episode, how the game like you mentioned a game that was a single and actual true single player experience game that was related to Marvel called Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
Oh, Ultimate Alliance, fantastic single player game that I think has that like team element to it.
How has Marvel how have games that have tried to all kind of like replicate Marvel Ultimate Alliance like failed to do so?
I think there needs to be more emphasis on the dynamic. Ultimate Alliance, I remember, relied on you constantly switching characters to do what you wanted to do in the game. You didn't have to do that to get through the game. You could just pick one that you liked the most and stick with them. But it's flexible in that way. Uh, what I think this kind of always online requirement indicates is they're likely promoting like you said, the drop in, drop out style of gameplay. I imagine it's probably a seamless experience if you're doing that with friends, which benefits that. But now it's kind of geared more towards that style of play over everything else. If the game's built around that idea, maybe it'll be great, but maybe it's not necessary.
Yeah, and then I also remember you telling me about the story and how the promotional stuff seemed very reminiscent of a different game.
Oh yeah. It looks like from what the promos are showing that the main plot is more than likely going to be stopping the Justice League after they've been mind controlled by Brainiac. Which, and I verbatim, when I first heard this, I said out loud, "That is the plot of Injustice 2." um, because it is the plot of Injustice 2. You know? It's not exactly the same. It's more like Batman v Superman esque, but there are, Harley Quinn is on Batman's side, and you're taking down Brainiac essentially. And that game has a couple different endings, but essentially he can mind control uh, people at his whim, and it's a constant source of conflict. So I don't know. I feel like I would want something a little uh, more gritty out of something like Suicide Squad, since they're especially going with the theming of the most recent movie. And that movie kind of leaned into those characters' absurdities in the best way. I think it's a little lame that it kind of seems like we're going to be getting if we don't stop this, it is the morally wrong thing to do. And we are technically the good guys in this situation because these typically good guys are mind controlled. You know?
It's such a lame. It's such a trope in the DC universe for that to happen. Like it's
I
either
agree.
it is so that plot line has been recycled so many times. Often, yeah, it's either Brainiac or it's Brainiac. Sometimes it's Starro, and then it goes back to being Brainiac. Or it's always Brainiac or Starro that do the same shit, and it's so annoying. And
Yeah.
they're doing it in the Suicide Squad, and it's really weird how they're able like to do that. But
hmm
and
It
oh my god.
it could be like there could be stuff we don't know yet, and that's what I'm hoping for.
I mean, no, it's probably some like shit in the water that they're drinking. I don't fucking know. And then the other thing that that troubles me is how the game is taking place in the Arkham verse of game in the like universe. To those that are
Oh
not
yeah.
aware of what the gibberish I'm talking about, the Arkham verse essentially is comprised of the titular game series that came out during the Xbox 360, like they're in the height of the Xbox 360 PS3 days of the early 2000s to 2010s, as well as the last sequel that came out for it, which came out towards the beginning of the PS4's like launch cycle. So you had like Batman Arkham Origins in canonical order. Batman no, it was Arkham, yeah, Batman Arkham Origins, Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and Arkham Knight. So it was like
Yeah.
it was four games. Origins was kind of dog shit. Asylum was cool. Everyone thinks Arkham City is peak. Um, Arkham Knight, the everyone hated the Batmobile.
I
And
think the story is peak in Arkham City. I think the gameplay is peak in Arkham Knight.
yeah, the story is the best part. It's like the whole like New Vegas Fallout 4 arguments of what are the better games? Like
Yeah.
Fallout 4 had the better gameplay, but of course, because they came out like during the PS3 era and the games were so much better, like gameplay wise. The story was shit in 4, but New Vegas is like a Christopher Nolan masterpiece. But
Yeah, but it kind of plays like
dog
a
shit.
very stiff board.
Yeah, it's oh my god, it's it's like trying to give like one of the first Ford cars like a new like a fusion reactor and
Yeah.
just like just plug it in, it'll work. You can't even run the game on PC without modding it to work because the fucking developers over at Obsidian or Bethesda aren't bothered to update the game anymore to make sure that it runs well on the newer hardware.
Yeah. And I'm glad Obsidian's doing their own things now. And they've Obsidian has gone on record saying they're down uh to remake New Vegas.
Yeah,
They would just need Bethesda's okay on it, and no one on Bethesda's like capitalizing on that idea.
yeah, really, really dumb. And then you have like Gotham Knights, which came out like earlier. That game is also mid pack dog. You know, it's dog water. Um,
Yeah, from what I've seen, it looked a little stiff running around. It looked like an Infamous or Prototype game,
yeah, fair.
um, where you don't have as much mobility.
No. The way you would move around with the characters really depended on who you played as.
Oh,
And like one of the ways you would traverse the environment as Red Hood was that because you died, you have the ability to like step through air.
wow.
Yeah, really. Yeah. But yet because in canonically in the Arkham universe, Batman is dead, or as he claims to be in the true ending of Arkham Knight. um, apparently, like the next step forward was not okay. Let's have the sidekicks take over. It was all right. Let's have this an entire separate group of people who have no
Yeah,
like um friendly ties with Batman. Like take over basically like his job. And it
y-
sucks, man. It doesn't
yeah.
make
We'll
sense
see.
story
I
wise.
they might have it in a way where they can continue that Arkham story thread. Uh, and though it might get like rustled up in the events of this game, maybe they'll leave it intact still for later.
Right.
But even then, it's like shouldn't maybe it should have more of an impact if these two like universes are colliding and you're trying to create a connected experience between games in the narrative. But I like that idea of kind of sticking with the sidekicks if they are pursuing the Arkhamverse because they established a lot with the Robins in across the Arkham
For
games. I
real,
feel
like
like.
Nightwing.
Yeah, Nightwing especially, and then I don't know, I forget the verbatim version, but which Robin gets tortured by the Joker.
I think it was Tim Drake.
That's not the one that's like actually his biological son, is it?
No, that's like something Wing.
Okay, and he doesn't. That one doesn't exist in the Arkhamverse. His biological son.
I think that's the newest Robin. That's
Oh,
most
okay.
yeah. I don't know cuz like um I don't know where how like in the like okay, the other thing with Gotham Knights, right?
Hmm.
Is like there's the newest Robin who's I mean cuz you have Dick Grayson who becomes Nightwing. You have the Batwoman who was like Sarah Gordon, and you have Red Hood, which is Tim Drake, and then the last Robin after that would well, this was the Red Robin, right? But I mean, oh my god. So moving past all the other extras, like Tim, like I think it's Thomas. What I don't even know the kid's name. Something Wayne. Would be the next is the current newest Robin. So I wonder when Batman had the time to like fuck during the Arkham series or not for his for him to have a kid.
I
And
think the only romantic tension is presented with Catwoman.
well, she canonically Batman had a kid with Talia al Ghul.
Is that what happened?
I don't know. I mean, if I didn't remember and all of a sudden have a kid that's related to me,
I don't think. I don't know if the Robins are biologically related to him in the Arkham series.
yeah, it's just a whole mess. Batman, because Gotham Knights also takes place when Bruce Wayne dies. I
I
mean, it's,
see.
yeah, like and Gotham Knights, and then Suicide Squad is Rocksteady, so both Batman are dead in those respective series. And then like the gameplay as well is very interesting because it looks just like Anthem or like Avengers again, and it has like the thing where like characters have like different like levels of like armor pieces like Destiny.
Hmm.
So they're gonna make you grind like strikes or like what they call strikes in that game.
I see.
Eh,
Well, I guess time will tell. I guess what Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is presenting is a potential strengthening or further convoluting of the current Arkham narrative.
Yeah, and then moving forward from that, what's the next thing on the list, Homester?
Now we're on to hardware itself. Now that we've established all of the, wow, that was all upcoming games. But how about non-forthcoming consoles, as in consoles that no longer exist?
You mean the
Um,
Ouya?
that's one of them.
Oh man.
Maybe Ouya adjacent.
For real, it really be like that. We were probably referring to the Stadia, the Google Stadia, which was for a long time one of the biggest like talks up in the gaming sphere regarding its potential, its longevity, and like could it even work in the first place. And we had an answer. I think it was last year when they finally shut down, right?
Uh-huh. And it's got like officially discontinued like just this past January.
Yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, it's weird because Google has this like history of canceling and like sunsetting like projects all the time.
Yeah. Um it's just must have not been making enough money. And uh what does that suggest about a fully cloud-based gaming system, you know?
Yeah.
To me, that just suggests they're probably going to try it again later and just do it better the second time. Um, since I feel like gaming is now uh, a marketplace where big companies want to try and get something out of it, especially ones involved in tech, you know.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me that they Google always does stuff like this. They what was it? Google Plus. Do you
Yeah.
remember Google Plus?
I do. You had to. It was mandatory for you to have a Google Plus at one point for YouTube.
Everyone hated it.
It
Everyone
was.
hated it so much.
Yeah.
And it died, but was kind of just reborn under a different guise. And now, like, Google just kind of casually has ownership over all these different login methods um, and services. So I feel like Google takes the L a lot, but they also use the L to come out on top later.
What did they do with Google? Like, what did they Frankenstein it into?
Um, is it Google One? Um, Something like Google One, but I'm also referring to like the interconnectedness of YouTube and Google and stuff. Like when I want to change my YouTube channel name, I don't do that on youtube.com. It redirects me to a Google domain, and I have to like change the Google settings, which adjusts my YouTube username, you know?
Yeah.
And like it wasn't like that. It used to all just be on YouTube, and then the Google Plus integration happened, and it never really went away. It just became like less in your face. Make your Google Plus account, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, they figure it out.
Other things that have seemed to like fail under like Google have been things like the Google Glass. Do you remember that one?
Oh wow, that I remember hearing that as a rumor, and then seeing something about it, and then never hearing about it again.
Yeah. The Google Glass,
Glass
man.
Enterprise Edition. Wow. Okay. I always feel like a sense of dystopia when looking at glasses related tech products. I don't know why specifically. And those Snapchat glasses too.
Oh, dude, those suck.
Uh, I felt equally as uneasy looking at that. Because
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, even this newer one, I guess they're calling it Google Glass, introducing Glass Enterprise Edition 2, a small, lightweight, wearable computer with a transparent display for hands free work. Conceptually, that's pretty cool. But I don't like the look of it. It looks a bit disturbing to me. And it looks like there's even like a little like processor or something like that on one of you know, the things that rest on your ears. It's like especially fat on one side where like the computer is. And like, how close do I want a computer to my head and for how long, you know?
That reminds me of when there was those big fat phones back in the 80s
Yeah.
or 90s where like they would give you like cancer or some shit like that if you held them too close to your head. That was funny.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me wonder about things we use today that would like don't have uh, fully conducted extensive research done on them because it's new technology.
Yeah.
Um, I guess we'll find out one day
I mean,
after we're already sick.
we do find like we do keep computers around our heads a lot. We have our phones usually when we call, or we have like
Yeah,
earbuds.
yeah. I mean, it's, I don't want to get all conspiratorial, but I just know that it's probably not good for you uh, to have like that amount of like waves coming in and out on a cellular like basis like that frequently all day. Probably not.
No.
And I don't know. Obviously, technology continues to advance and get safer over time. But still, new stuff uh, in tech is always, well. Google likes to experiment. You got to
Yeah.
give them that.
Yeah, the Google Glass like came back started in like 2012, and then like and what's funny was around that time Time magazine made according to a verdict a website I found right now says that they made it the best invention of the year at Time magazine.
Wow.
Yeah, but the when they actually launched the product, a lot of people said that it was very buggy and it just very gimmicky, which is, I mean, makes sense, especially when it was priced at $1,500.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not paying that much to be a tester.
that's gonna suck balls.
um,
Do you know how much the Stadia was?
I don't know, but let's find out. MSRP. It was, oh wow, $129 for the Premier Edition. This includes a Chromecast Ultra, a Stadia controller, and a 3-month subscription for Stadia Pro, which includes some complimentary games. So you 130 for the controller, a Chromecast, and a 3-month subscription. You would have to continue to pay after that 3 months.
Damn.
Which, yeah, I mean, it's a service you have to continuously pay for. I feel like just on that basis alone, and the amount of alternatives there are to getting games besides directly streaming them, that I think that's a pretty good explanation for why it failed so quickly.
Dude, it had like no games at all.
One argument I see online is that it didn't have its own good titles or any of its own games or exclusives to draw people to it. Do you think that has any merit?
What was the question one more time?
It's an argument is that people make for why it failed is that the Stadia didn't have its own gaming titles. It didn't have its own IP or anything to draw people to it. Do you think could be a contributor, or do you think it's just the very nature of a streaming console?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I don't think. I think it's both. Like,
I
if you're
guess so.
going to
Yeah.
provide a game console, and you're gonna start off fresh, you gotta have like bangers, man, like your own bangers. Cause what, like when Xbox first rolled around with like the 360, right? The
Hmm.
first, a lot of people were skeptical about that because previously the only other game console people played was like the PlayStation 2, and that was like the hit. And the games that brought people to the Xbox were things like Gears of War. I don't know if Forza was around that time, but Forza and Halo. Yeah,
Yeah, Xbox was nuts with their exclusives, like in the 360 era.
yeah, and then when you get to the PlayStation side of things, when the PlayStation 2 rolled around, you had, I mean, I'm not really um aware or knowledgeable of the PS1 exclusives, but when it came to PS2, if you wanted to play that still, because around I remember the Atari and the GameCube were around there,
Hmm.
were in that cycle, and you had things like Ratchet and Clank, Jack and Daxter. I think you had Killzone. Like you had all the platform games, all the platformer games. You had Sly Cooper, God of War. I could,
Hmm.
yeah, and others.
And that, yeah, clearly like having exclusive titles draws people to the console. But I guess taking it further, why like should that be the model that is replicated in order to attain success? Or should the Google Stadia's failing worry us? because that means either this practice of exclusivity has a chokehold on other newer consoles prospering, or at the very minimal, it discourages other competition from entering the fray. You know?
Yeah, but like it's so landlocked. It's already Xbox and PlayStation. Like what
Yeah.
other unless you're another multi-billion-dollar corporation, like maybe like Amazon could do it. I mean, they own everything.
Uh,
They have
yeah,
everyone's
they kind of
address.
are doing it. They have an MMO. They have two MMOs under their belt now. They have New World and Ark, Lost Ark, which is an ARPG like Diablo, and those are both owned by Amazon Games. So I think they're trying to get a foothold in, which is, I mean, it's no, sweat off their brow if a game flops or not.
Yeah, it's really just like a small drop in the toilet to compare to
But
the amount of money they have.
yeah, I
Uh,
guess you're right. I guess you need to have some skin in the game if you want to get your new console up to their level of appreciation. I guess it's probably easier to be an indie game developer that's successful than a new console developer that's successful.
yeah, because you could just get picked up by Epic, or become
Oh
an
yeah,
exclusive on the Game Pass.
like any half decent game, they're like, "Hey, we'll pay you what you're expecting in sales immediately if you give us exclusivity."
Yeah, and the other thing you were mentioning was about how Stadia has been such a, how do I say it, an issue with the, how to say it. Oh, so yeah, cloud streaming has been an issue and has been an issue for such a long time. Because I remember in the older days, there used to be PlayStation like PS Now, and
Mm-hmm.
where it would be it was before we had uh the new system that they rolled out where they basically merged PlayStation Now with the PlayStation subscriptions.
Mm-hmm.
You had PlayStation Now, which was the separate online service that gave people the ability to replay PlayStation 3 and 2 games on your PS4.
Yeah.
Um, Unfortunately, because of the PS3's unique architecture, you can't really download any of those games and play them natively on your PlayStation 4. So you have to play them through like an online emulator on like offshore. I don't know where that server is in fucking Taiwan or some shit.
Yeah,
Um,
I did that once with the original Red Dead Redemption, and I used an Ethernet cable, but my connection was still so poor when streaming that game.
yeah, and you see the resolution for a game that has a low quality like that
Yeah,
get even
like
worse.
as soon as the quality even goes down a little bit on a PS3 or Xbox game, like you notice it.
Yes.
We're spoiled nowadays with things always coming out in 4K. And
120
going
hertz.
looking at things like from the PS3 era, it's more noticeable now, which is wild because back in the day that did look fantastic. That did look peak.
Yeah. No bueno. And I mean the other problem was that with that is that you how is internet like supposed to be so fast enough? Like we have like what is it called? We have fiber and that's not even enough.
Oh wow. But yeah, internet can be pretty unreliable. People have different providers. The person providing the streaming, the server that the streaming is happening on, likely has a different provider than the person doing the streaming. Um, the more people who have different internet that are involved in the process, the more margin of error exists for it to be unpleasant. But like we were talking about before, technology continues to evolve. So this likely won't be that big of a deal in 5 years, I'd even say. I think someone's going to come along and master the, you know, stream straight to whatever device you want uh, market when it comes to games.
Maybe nowadays, but everyone wants to play the classics. And with
These are
Stadia
facts.
having an only streaming service, it was not only like I think it's impossible, like or at least in our lifetimes impossible. But like, wait, you when you buy a game on the PlayStation, like what? Okay. Well, you can apply this to like a PlayStation or Xbox, or even like buying games on the Switch, right? Because if
Hmm.
they're digital games, you're just essentially buying like the code or like a voucher to unlock the game.
Yeah.
But but you what they also offer, or at least PlayStation and Xbox, is the ability to have the games physically on disc. And so if you're streaming, well, they literally showed how what would happen to like what if one day they decided to shut down the fucking servers. They did, and they had a guy that had like almost like 6,000 hours or 600 hours, something around there, around that ballpark, who was playing Red Dead Redemption 2,
Uh-huh.
and everyone, and he was sad because he was gonna lose all his progress on that game.
Oh man, goodness. But yeah, it's with the streaming comes unreliability, and
Do you
I
even
mean,
own your games, man? That's what I'm saying.
yeah, I think that's the biggest thing too. It feels better to own and hold a game than to quote unquote borrow it for a bit, which is what streaming is essentially. You're borrowing.
Yeah, no. I'm glad that PlayStation like kept that, but only as an adjacent service with an extra added fee to the PlayStation Plus like subscription model.
Yeah, it's good they did that, but you know, every time this comes up, I'm always gonna remind the class to gaze angrily at Microsoft for beginning the concept of paying for online for consoles.
Yeah,
Um, Shame on you.
yeah, for real. Yeah,
Look
yeah,
where
yeah.
we are now.
For real. Fuck Google. Nah, I'm fucking. I use Google for everything. I mean, you literally when you search things up on the internet, you're saying, "I'm going to Google it." Now,
Yeah.
imagine if
Um,
we Bing was the thing, right? Like, hey, let's Bing it.
it's poor Microsoft Edge, dude. I feel so bad for them.
Seriously, and they're just left in the dark. Cobwebs. You got like probably like daywalkers, zombies just chilling in the. It looks like a haunted house in there, man.
Hmm.
Um, but aside from that, um, aside from shit going sideways for an entire like console, for obvious reasons, Nintendo recently just came out with another banger, which was the Metroid Prime remastered, which is has come down to really stellar reviews. I mean, IGN gave it a 10, I believe. Um,
10 out of 10.
yeah, but there has been something that we addressed like in the back room, talking and making this list of things to talk about, which was, Metroid Prime isn't really an easy game to play. And but since the GameCube, why have Nintendo's games seem to have been getting like more streamlined or or like easier even?
Yeah, I definitely noticed that when watching the gameplay for Metroid Prime Remastered. It really succeeds in looking like a new experience because I think watching the gameplay in that trailer, you see a lot more complexity in gameplay and level design than you do in modern Nintendo games. I feel like. Would you agree?
Say that one more time.
Just watching the gameplay for Metroid Prime Remastered like kind of makes you realize how uncomplex modern Nintendo games are.
Yeah, I have to totally agree. It seems like they're like Marvel movies. Like they just have like a factory's like, all right, new coat of paint, release, and it's like, remember, price it at 60. And then they
Yeah,
looked at the older games, and you're like, all right, keep it nice and steady at 60. Fuck
yeah,
you.
and it
Oh my
never goes
god.
on sale.
Never. It's always the third party games on the Nintendo store that go on sale. Unless it's like Black Friday and they're like, all right, I got it. You want to play this game?
And it's
What?
like one of their AAA
Yeah,
titles
and
at
it's like,
like
all right, man.
20%.
What if we knock down $5?
Yeah,
Kind of a steal.
but yeah, I agree when you say it's getting more streamlined. It feels like over time they're wanting it to be more accessible to more people, which is fine. But they never miss on presentation. I feel like, um, except for the newest Pokemon game. but it feels like they're kind of leaning more into presentation than substance. I think of all of the collectible moons in Super Mario Odyssey, and all of the Korok seeds in Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Both have very cool worlds, but a lot of the worlds didn't have much substance. You could make an argument that I'm just completely wrong about Breath of the Wild, but for me, the shrines and Korok seeds became quite repetitive very quickly, especially because it felt like a lot of the shrines were just copy pasting themselves across the world. So you go on a great vast journey in this strange, unique world, and you're met with just 4 or 5 different rotating, mechanics in a semi dungeon. But yeah, it just seems like that. And then you compound that, in their newer stuff, and then compare that to releases like sequels. I remember, like, in the Wii U era, there was like New Super Mario Brothers Wii U, and then there was like Wii U like 2 or something like that, and then Mario World, and then they remade all of those on the Switch and resold them. And it's like, this is a lot of 2D-esque platformers. And I wish, something more explorative would be done.
I personally believe. Well, I remember the biggest reason like Nintendo has. Well, I believe. I mean, to me, you guys could quote me on this, or like see like, or like when I leave the Spotify thing down, feel free to give me a response on why I'm wrong. Uh, GameCube has like sold didn't sell well under the competition that it had against like the PlayStation 2 and like the Xbox. So, when they phased out the GameCube, they realized that they couldn't compete with the same audience. Uh, which is why instead of going like with the higher spec console, moving into the PS3, Xbox 360 cycle, they opted out for the Wii and became more of a like a family brand than anything else. Because the GameCube had things like Resident Evil 4, like it like if we're talking Nintendo exclusives, they had like like Super Mario. They probably brought back Super Mario 64 for the GameCube, but they also had Super Mario Sunshine, which is the biggest Mario game I remember. One of my favorite ones, but like one of the more like complex ones. And then there was, I think it was was Luigi's Mansion also on the GameCube?
I believe it was on the GameCube, yeah.
Yeah, so you had like such innovative games. That
Smash Melee.
Yeah, Smash Melee too, and Brawl. I believe was Brawl on the GameCube.
Brawl was Wii,
Brawl was on
and
me.
yeah, people had a similar complaint with Brawl that it was a bit more streamlined than Melee was.
Yeah, so by moving into a family-friendly domain rather than being like a video game like brand, even though there's only technically a video game brand, they essentially have opted out for making games that are easier for like babies and for like children. Or I mean also man children, but like all the Pokemon games have been getting I don't know, would you say that Pokemon games have been getting easier, harder, or shittier, or
They're
what?
absolutely easier. Okay, so the reason Pokemon games are easier now is because of this thing called the experience share. In the older games, you would equip it to one Pokemon, and it would get a percentage of experience that your regular Pokemon you're fighting with is earning. So they're technically leveling up more slowly, but they're passively leveling up as you play the game. So it helps you with the grind a little bit, strengthening up your Pokemon. In the new games, the past 2 ones that came out on the Switch, it's not really. It could be an item, but regardless if it's an item or not, it's automatically applied from the beginning of the game to all your Pokemon. They all receive some experience in every fight you do, and that's the direction they're leaning in for the series. Essentially, removing, in my opinion, pretty much all element of grind needed to make it to the end of the game, which I think by that point it's just a matter of opinion, but I would say objectively that's an easier experience progressing through the game. And I'm just saying you can see it kind of seeping into every one of their original franchises. There's just an aspect that's changed or tweaked that makes it easier. Whether that's a bad thing or not, I think it's just up to the individual. I don't really like it that much, though. I was excited seeing Metroid Prime gameplay and how complex it looked.
Yeah, seriously. What about the I mean, are you more? I'm not very acquainted with the Mario series. I've always been a PlayStation nerd, and
Mm-hmm.
as of like the last 3 4 years, I've gotten more into like the PC space of things with my PC that I acquired. But when I recently bought a Switch, like, and I upgraded later to a Switch like OLED, just gonna call it a fucking Pro. Imagine. The when I tried getting into those games, a lot of them seemed like way too easy or like for children almost. Like the games I personally bought on the Switch have been games like Just Dance, cause for the exercise and stuff.
It's a
You
good
had
workout.
yeah, it's pretty good stuff. You had the Doom 2018 or 2019, whichever, or 2016, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um I did buy the Pokemon Blue Doggy edition, which is like Diamond.
Oh, the Diamond remake.
Yeah, the remake for Diamond, which is all right.
Which, how do you feel about them going with the chibi style for the overworld with the cute characters, and trying to emulate that 2D over the head art style instead of doing what they did with Omega Ruby and Sapphire and making it kind of a more third person open world experience?
I'm okay with.
Um,
I'm actually okay with it. Um,
yeah,
yeah, it keeps the magic of what the game was.
it
I,
preserves like its original image.
yes, but with the new Pokemon games, I don't know. I feel like they're just running out of ideas when it comes to like what kind of Pokemon they have. I mean, the general like response to that answer has been like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, we have like garbage Pokemon now. This is a literal trash bag with eyeballs and like shit like that. And the new legendary Pokemon are not even legendary. I mean, you acquire them in the very beginning, and the
Yeah,
problem with that is, how do I say it? They've become like vehicles for you to use to traverse the map.
yeah, literally. It's a bit weird looking, to be honest, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's really dumb. They don't have that same mysticism as like, let's just say like like what is it? Not Lucario, but like
Lucario is one of those mysticism types, but you're probably thinking of Mew and Mewtwo.
yeah, Mewtwo, like the legendary ones, right? Like Dialga.
Yeah,
I forgot the other
uh,
fucker's name.
Palkia, uh,
Palkia,
Deoxys.
Deoxys, and yeah, like so, yeah, like all these like cool ass like bitchin' Pokemon, and then you have like this one like other Pokemon that looks like runs on four cylinders and probably has an eco mode for all fucking for all
Yeah, what
all
I've
sake. I
learned
don't know.
from playing the new ones is it's not a legendary. It's like a type of Pokemon that exists, but it is like unique in a sense, and they still have legendaries. But they went with the promoting the vehicle-esque ones on the box art,
Oh,
and I don't think the designs work very well. I understand using like a serpent to kind of like replicate that like motorcycle aesthetic, but really, yeah, the wheels are kind of jutting out of their abdomens.
it's so weird. It looks like you could take him in for an oil check.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a horrible like human decision to like meld a Pokemon with new technology, instead of like a biological thing that exists in the world, which
Yeah.
is how it's explained,
What is
which is
that?
what it is. It's a living creature.
Yeah.
It's
What is that
but it
name of the
doesn't.
god Pokemon? Like the white one with
Oh,
like the legs, the horse one,
I
horse
hope
looking one.
I'm pronouncing this right. Arceus?
Yeah, probably. It's funny
Could be
because
Arceus.
yeah, because the I remember like the whole plot behind that was that they are like the god of all Pokemon or something.
Yeah, no, the early gen, like Gen 1 through 4 legendaries, even 5, I think, legendaries and legendary subtypes had pretty dark backstories
Yeah.
and like pretty like horrifying like conceptualities. Like even Pokemon like a Rotom, which I think you find in a haunted mansion in Diamond, that can take the appearance of household furniture.
Fuck.
And it has like a creepy theme when you fight it, you know? And there's Pokemon like Spiritomb, where I think it's like trapped souls or something like that. Like, good God.
And then like speaking of like trap stars, you know, you also have Cubone. I mean, can't forget about the classic.
Wearing his dead mother's skull.
Exactly. And then now you have like, oh yeah, like it has eco mode, 4 cylinders. Like it might like I put insurance on the
It's funny
tires.
because it does get upgraded as you progress through the
Oh
game.
my god! It sounds like oh,
You
I gotta
literally get
refuel it.
upgrades.
Oh my god, it's so dumb, bro. And then like, what about like yeah, like I said, like the
Like, you know, you rode bikes in the old games. You could have just given it a cool bike.
yeah, like a new modern bike that wasn't a literal biological thing.
Yeah.
So weird. I don't know. Did we discuss already like the Mario games, right? How like have been they
Oh,
came?
you brought him up because you were saying you don't know him too well, and then we kind of went away from that. Were you going to ask me something about them?
Yeah, exact. Sorry to bring it back. We
No,
have
that's
to
fine.
cut away for a
I
second.
do know about the Mario games. I haven't played all of them because there's so many,
Yeah.
but I do know I have my fair share of experience with the guy.
Has has Mario and his ensemble of games gotten easier for you, or do you think it's because you're an adult, or have the game has the game content itself gotten easier?
I'd say there's Well, I'd say objectively, if you were to compare Super Mario 64 to Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario 64 tests you on your knowledge of the game far more often than Odyssey does. But Odyssey has far more hours of content and collectibles. So what does that sound like to you? You know,
It just see that's lame. Cause was it the same? I mean, of course you have the stars that you collect in every fucking Mario game, but there's
it's
also
moons
oh
in
okay.
Odyssey,
Um,
and there's how many of them are there? It's a ridiculous number, and it kind of gives off like, did you put that many like just to make it sound like there's this vast amount of content? There are 880 collectible moons in Super Mario
yeah.
Odyssey.
What do you get if you collect all
You only need 500 of them, I think, to get the true ending, and then the rest is just, I think, like for completionists.
of them?
But
That's
still, that's a lot.
lame.
And his movement has evolved over the years, and 64 was the first to introduce like wall jumping, the somersaulting, the crazy moves that the speedrunners do. And Odyssey has all that, but the levels aren't designed in a way where that tests you enough. It's very rare, and you definitely don't need to exercise your knowledge of the game's mobility mechanics to get to the true ending. Because, like I said, you can be missing 330 moons and still get the true ending. Um, so like, I don't know. I'm like, why are those 330 even there? Maybe have like Mario 64 has a fewer number of collectibles, but specified challenges, platforming challenges that you need to perform to get them all. And it's just is once again not really a bad thing, but for me, it's less rewarding.
Yeah, it's not
Um,
cool, Mel.
like, yeah, a kid would probably enjoy this. I would probably enjoy this more if I was a kid because the presentation's fantastic, but where's the substance?
Do you think Nintendo should start catering back to adults?
I think they can do both. Kind of like with things like Majora's Mask that have these horribly dark storylines, but still take place. You're a kid, you're like an elf kid in the woods still. A Legend of Zelda game. And they've kind of stuck with dark themes throughout the whole of Zelda storyline, even the newest one, which I consider like, I was talking a little bit of smack about it earlier, but thematically it's a post-apocalyptic game. Um,
What?
I just want them to lean a little more into that
How
and
is it
take a risk.
post-apocalyptic?
Essentially, this isn't really a spoiler. You can find it out pretty quickly in the game yourself. Link lost in Breath of the Wild, and when you're playing as him, it's like 100 years later after he lost, but he was preserved somehow. And Zelda, this whole time, has been fighting off Ganon from escaping Hyrule Castle. So essentially, the world did lose, but Zelda's been holding Ganon at bay for 100 years, pretty much. And the second he breaks free, it's over. And yeah, that's the game. So dark thematically, but that doesn't really, to me at least, it doesn't really impact that much in what you experience in the game. The dungeons don't really lean into that aesthetic. Everything's kind of glowy. It looks great, and I think it kind of. Tell me if I'm wrong. Don't you think there's like this Breath of the Wild effect that's kind of like bled over into other stuff? Like, I feel like it's not a coincidence that the newer Pokemon games kind of look like Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
And then you've got something like Sonic Frontiers, which, it looks great. Also kind of looks like Sonic Breath of the Wild.
when I think the best example of that would be in the newest. Uh, Not what is it? What is that one PlayStation where you play as Alloy?
Oh, Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah, the sequel to that one, I believe, takes a lot of inspiration. It's probably because of the glider. Everyone always, when they see a glider, like, oh my god, I love Zelda. Ah. Yeah, it's
What?
it's weird.
Oh, while I'm dissing it, I should praise it for the one thing I never want them to take away, and what all open world games should have: the ability to climb any surface. That's the best part of Breath of the Wild, like, by far. Like, it is fun to do that. And other games are capping when they say you can climb any mountain. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like in Breath of the Wild, you can climb any mountain you want. It just depends on your stamina meter, There's no restrictions on these surfaces. And I hope that's a trend that continues.
yeah, that would be cool to see.
You gotta give them praise where it's due. But I think that's all I have to say about Nintendo's games. I wish them the best.
Yeah, seriously. Maybe do you think they'll release more like rated M third-party games?
I don't think they have a problem doing that. I think they should make a freaking rated M game.
Damn, what would that even look like, or what franchise? See, the only franchise I think that would be cool seeing as rated M would be Metroid.
I think there are a couple. Yeah, they've Rare made Conker's Bad Fur Day for the N64. That game's rated M.
Oh my god. Well, is there anything
Max
newer?
Payne, that's not a Nintendo exclusive. Uh, I guess Bayonetta could kind of count. Um, she's a bit promiscuously presented, I should say, and there's a lot of demonic imagery in that franchise.
True.
But yeah, it's not their foray. It's not what they're known for.
No, not anymore. No.
But yeah, I hope they experiment as the times change, and that this, sort of adding in stuff to continuously get more and more accessible isn't an ever continuous trend.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
moving forward from GameCube, I mean, and like the fact that like, fuck, there's no weird way to segue this, huh? Yeah, let's just talk about Atomic Heart, right? Like, what's the deal with that?
Oh, I remember why this isn't paired with our new releases. Because this is about the quote-unquote controversy surrounding it. But I didn't really want to talk about the controversy too much, just sort of the implications that conversations like this have about games and their imagery and their representations. So for anyone who doesn't know, the developers of the game Atomic Heart, which I would just quickly associate it as Russia-esque Bioshock as a sort of style, have been in some hot water, as Ukrainian legislation have asked for the game to be pulled from the marketplaces all over because of the ongoing real-world war between Russia and Ukraine, which is horrible. That a real-world war is happening right now. And before anything about this, I just want to say I can completely understand the Ukrainians' position of acknowledging that a Russian-based studio could potentially use profits toward the war effort. That's completely understandable. We don't know where the money goes. We don't know what's going to happen to it. Anything could happen. That's a completely reasonable concern. But in the written request to have the game pulled, the government noted that the game itself promotes the communist regime in Soviet symbols, and they then kind of went on to say, does Sony want to be, or does Sony or Microsoft or whoever hosts the game, do you guys want to be known as a platform that supports communism? And that specifically is what I want to talk about. How far do you think representation can go before you're considered supporting it by just holding it? And have you seen anything like this before in history with games?
Yeah, I believe we both have. I mean, if we're going up regarding the first half of the question, how far can it go? Well, I only think when they start like it's whenever like you play the game and there's like ads and they're like, hey man, have you considered joining the military or like some shit like that? Cause like and then the other like, cause how how is too far? I personally don't know when too far is too far. Because there
Well,
hasn't been a game that has advocated for you to join, unless you're like talking about like the only real like actual games that have indirectly actually have tried to make it so you're like pro like military or pro war or whatever for the side to for a certain side would be
mm-hmm.
like games that release like post 9/11 and like so like for example the original Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare, uh like the Call of Duty games, probably Battlefield, like Battlefield 3 takes place in the Middle East. It seems
Yeah,
like
I think there's stuff to be said about all of that.
right,
But yeah,
and it's because like essentially the guy who tweeted this was a guy named Meek. I'm sorry, I'm gonna butcher the shit out of your name, man. Mikhailo like Fedorov, who's a vice prime minister of Ukraine and a minister of digital transformation of Ukraine, which is what you said, right?
yeah.
Yeah, and he was talking about how oh, fucking hell, man. I'm blanking out. I'm dying of sleep. So when it comes to like if we were to talk about Battlefield and all these games, they could all say the same shit of like how they're how they're supporting a bloody regime known as the United States, where murders and where they murder and romanticize and like the invasions of like the Middle East because of terrorism.
I'd say I think there's an argument you could make for that about Call of Duty actually. But I don't. Battlefield likes to craft its own narratives out of existing governments and see where that goes, and cultures and such. Call of Duty tends to keep the identity of Western society and locales and governments, but they add the fictitious elements to the Middle Eastern attackers, which kind of is like, why not just make it all fictional then? Yeah, why are you so scared to have political implications here when you're still showing these soldiers, do horrible things to these people? Um, but yeah, but it does that. Is that promoting it? You know, I wouldn't think so personally. But if I were to play devil's advocate for a second, and let's say something like Atomic Heart, which is filled with bright colors and a unique art style, and quite frankly, sexual elements all over the place visually. It's a stimulating looking game. Someone could probably uh, feel emboldened by this. No, do you think it's possible that maybe someone could see this as a glorification of communism?
Negative. Well, no, of course not. It's what they're doing is essentially what they're doing with a previous game series that did almost like not communism but capitalism or America, right? Which is Bioshock. You have way more experience with Bioshock. Can you tell me what the
Yeah.
whole theme of Bioshock is?
Well, yeah. Here's the thing, especially since I haven't played Atomic Heart, but based on the stuff that was shown for all the pre-release and at-release material, it appears to be a sort of Bioshock-esque style of a unique setting you're in that's dominated by a certain ideology and way of life that has a negative impact on everything around you. In Bioshock's case, yeah, there's a lot of capital elements, but Bioshock is pretty much a lot about objectivism and how letting the individual run rampant in all areas maybe isn't the best solution in all instances, with especially with things like plasmids. As soon as the plasmids came into place, it ruined their society because now people who could afford plasmids were genetically superior to those who couldn't, and it was addictive. So, and that's what it leads to. That's what letting the individual have too much power led to. So it, you know, obviously in instances where there's communist imagery, it would be interesting to see that completely flipped on its head. Here's what happens when no individual has enough power. Um, and to me, at least, with its wacky presentation, it's clear, I think, to someone viewing this from an outside perspective that this isn't necessarily a glorification of the communist lifestyle. Um, but obviously, an argument can be made about how violence is glorified in video games in general. But does that impact people in the way we think it might? It makes me think of the early school shooters and how people would attribute their playing Doom to that.
Yeah, I mean, you also have like GTA, right? Same shit.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, exactly. GTA. There's horrible stuff you can do in GTA. There are glorifications, but I feel like most people that do that don't feel the need to act on that glorification and replicate it.
Yeah, there's no
But
and there's also like no like scientific data to correlates with any of that.
yeah, yeah.
Quite the contrary. And in regards to like Atomic Heart, you know, like we didn't have a problem, at least in the United States, you know, like having Bioshock around. And when we have Atomic Heart, the it's not they're not romanticizing communism. Rather, they're how do I say they're exacerbating it to a degree that seems almost stupid
Hmm.
or yeah, like really unrealistic, and how it's like not possible for it. Like it's almost a critique on it essentially.
Yeah, yeah. And even just looking at the screenshots, it doesn't look like it's meant to be a serious take. It's sitting at 86% positive user reviews on Steam right now. Unfortunately, though, a lot of the reviews aren't very serious, likely because of the controversy surrounding this. Um, which that's a problem. That's a conversation we can have another day. The Steam review system. Um, but yeah, I think it's. I haven't played the game myself. I might try it one day to see for myself. But I think I'm safe in saying it likely its message isn't trying to say communism is the answer.
Yeah, no.
Some people have said, as a rebuttal to this message that was sent out requesting the game to be taken down, that studios in Russia are not allowed to critique the war, and that's what the Ukrainians wanted out of this game, was for the game devs to verbally condone the war that was happening. but they have not. It could be that the devs don't want to do it, but it could also be that if they do it, they'll get in huge trouble. I can't say if any of this is true, but I do know last week protesters were getting arrested in Russia for protesting the war. So I'll take that as I will.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I hope it turns out well. But going along with other atrocities in our current day world, marketing and Funko Pops. What
Oh
has that
my
left us
god.
with?
Dude. All right. So according to IGN, right, they're saying that, and I quote, Funko, the toy and collectible manufacturer best known for its Funko Pop vinyls line, is sending at least $30 million worth of its products to a landfill. According to and they're as well, they're in their article, they're quoting Kotaku, where they saying that they revealed that an earnings at an earning at an oh my god, I'm having a stroke. Revealed that during an earnings call that it has so much idle stock sitting in warehouses that that the best option is to throw 30 to 36 million dollars worth of it in the garbage.
Okay.
And the earnings call said an inventory at year end totaled 246.4 million, an increase at 48% compared to a year ago. This includes inventory that the company intends to eliminate in the first half of 2023 to reduce fulfillment costs by managing inventory levels to align with the operating capacity of our distribution center. This is expected to result in a write down in the first half of 2023 of approximately 30 to 36 million. End quote.
Do you think it's safe to say you could switch the headline to say Funko is sending $30 million worth of its products to a landfill to Funko is sending $30 million worth of plastic to a landfill?
Dude, that shit is ending up in our fucking bloodstream, bro. I can't wait to have like what is it, like an LA Dodgers like Funko Pop, like what is it,
Just
microplastic?
sprouting out of you?
Yeah, like just chilling in my bloodstream. It's gonna be tight. The I personally find this to be atrocious because it's usually something that we don't really talk about often, which is like I guess toy like or like collectible like what like sellers and what they're doing. But this is something that like we couldn't really skip out on because like for so long collectibles such as like well specifically Funko Pops have been such a like a I don't not like it's actually like a buzzword or like wow oh my god, but it's just been a thing where it's like you're just expected to find like a respected pop culture franchise to have its own Funko Pop at some point.
Yeah, it's like the default of like the modern toy aesthetic or the modern like item on desk that takes up space aesthetic.
Yeah, it does. It serves nothing, right? And my biggest problem with these, it's how people would compare these. At least I would like to compare these. No, sorry. People would like to see these and compare them to like collector's editions of video games, probably, and be like, well, why would you say that the Funko Pops are like useless if like other people collect things like Gundams and like collector's editions of like video games.
Yeah, well, now I would say they're useless since $30 million worth of them are going to a landfill.
Yeah, the thing is they're like they make like Lost like Lost World like Jurassic Park like they make everything. They make everything a Funko Pop. But like the thing is,
Yeah,
not everyone is gonna buy a Funko Pop, and
yeah, it's true.
there's so many like what Funko Pops do you think are gonna end up in the trash? Like in your honest opinion, like what genres, what brands?
I'm gonna just say probably non-Marvel adjacent brands, non popular brands, because they probably produce stuff for characters in the mainstream, but if that character isn't making headlines for a new release or something, I think there's always going to be a bit of overstock. I think they just overstock as a standard, it seems like, if something like this is happening.
For real, they're like, oh my god, bro, we have like $1 million worth of Seinfeld Funko Pops, or Bazinga. What is it? The Big Bang Theory
Big Bang
Funko
Theory.
Pops.
Yeah, But it seems like it's cheaper for them to just dump it in this landfill, and I think it's interesting they use that language. That's their best option. Um, really? That's your best option,
Yeah, that's hard.
or is it
That's
the
cap.
most profitable option?
Yeah, it seems that by dumping it in the trash, they can keep the whatever price these like. Well, in my opinion, like in a landfill or in a GameStop, they're still trash. Like they do nothing. They do nothing except take up space, literally, as you said it before. And what was my point? Oh my god, what was I saying?
You're talking about GameStop, I think.
Oh yeah, so god damn man, I'm losing track of time, sleep. I am so sorry, guys. So um, by having so much like crap like this, it's just not worth having them. It's no point. As much as it's cool having collectibles. Oh, okay, I remember now. So essentially, by having by throwing them all away, they can sustain the price of this fucking shit to a level. Because if you were to flood the market with like a fucking like, with a ton of them, the price of Funko Pops would go down to like $1 or something. Like
Yeah,
imagine, because if I were to sell like Funko Pops at a limited range, and all of a sudden, like the entire like street was just flooded with Funko Pops, just endlessly,
yeah.
I would
I
make
guess
no
its
money out
value
of
would
those.
go down. Yeah,
It's yeah, they don't serve any purpose. They take up space. The art style is very unoriginal.
yeah,
They all look assembly line made to me. Um,
yeah.
to the argument that I was posing earlier as to like why would you rather buy a collector's edition or a Gundam rather than a Funko Pop?
Hmm.
When I buy a collect like for example, I the collector's edition of Dead Space like by Limited Run Games finally or like just limited they're called Limited Run finally arrived at my footstep at my doorstep and it was pretty cool. I opened it up and it came with a postcard, uh, a pin, stickers. Uh, what is it? Like those things you put on jackets, like patches. A patch. They had a
Oh,
patch. Uh, other things, and as well as like an actual like wearable helmet, right? And all that was like about 200 something dollars. And if you were to compare that to like the amount of stuff that you could do with like a Funko Pop, like all you could do is have them sit on like a wall. It's like wow.
yeah. It's a really like it's a collectible like completionist kind of product, but I hate how like common they are everywhere, and like it seems like that was really their end game is to just have them everywhere,
Yeah, you
and
could
it
buy them at 7-Eleven.
seems yeah, it seems they don't really mind the ramifications of having them everywhere. Apparently,
I mean, if I'm going to 7-Eleven to get some fucking gas, and maybe I'm hungry and I get myself a hot dog, what the fuck am I gonna do buying a Funko Pop at 7-Eleven?
yeah, I don't know. I guess if you had a completionist mindset and you had one in the set and you saw the other one there, you would be inclined to pick it up. I guess is what they're hoping for.
Damn. Do you think there's people out there that track like 7-Eleven like shipments of Funko Pops? They're like, oh my god, bro, look, it's the Aquaman, like the shit
Maybe
fuck
like
fart.
midnight releases, or something like that. But yeah, I agree that they aren't very different from one another overall.
No.
Kind of lazy in that aspect. I think if they made them more unique from each other, there'd be more appeal to that.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's also the case with like Gundams, right? Like Gundams are so unique, like they're so intricate. There's different. All of them are different from one another. And when it comes to buying like Gundams versus Funko Pops, I feel like there's a different air between the two of them.
Hmm.
Because with Gundams, you have the ability to keep them white and paint them however you want, or keep them like accurate to like the model. With Funko Pops, it's just like once again they just sit on your shelf and do nothing. Whereas Gundams, you have the ability to change their appendages, how they look like. It also is kind of like an art and like a kind of a craft. It's like painting like 40 like Warhammer 40K figures.
Yeah, and there's a lot of fun in that. There's a lot of appeal to that level of customization.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's appeal.
right. And then the, and then there's also the environmental impacts of like what that get like that amount of like trash. Because you know that they're like we're pretty confident that like not only are they gonna like bury this shit, but they're gonna like destroy it like physically. Like it isn't gonna be like an ET like for Atari where they caused like the crash of video games where they just like buried the like them whole in some ditch in the desert. They're gonna like throw them in a wood chipper and then like just dump it all those like plastic chips into like the landfill.
Yeah, we need a better way to get rid of plastic. But I hate that because it sounds like we're forced as a species to like adapt to the like mega corporation natural consequences as opposed to them just not doing that.
Yeah, I think they should get fined for doing that shit. That's not cool.
Yeah. Like maybe don't have $30 million worth of overstock. Goodness.
Yeah, no, pretty big oversight on their part.
But tracking with that bleakness and what will ultimately be the downfall of our society, there's a little bit more Last of Us news to finish us off.
Let's go.
I bring this up because I know I brought it up when the first episode started coming out, and now this upcoming Sunday, the season finale is going to drop, pretty much concluding the events of the season and the events of the first game, it seems like. And more than likely, you know what? I'm just gonna check it right now. Okay, there is a change. Okay, yeah, they're greenlit for season 2. But yeah, we're already here. I've been enjoying it. I personally don't think any episode has missed thus far. But I bring it up for its conclusiveness, and also that recently Bella Ramsey, the actress who plays Ellie in the show, stated that the season finale is going to divide people massively. And that piqued my curiosity because the original game kind of divided people. So I wonder if she's referring to the events that are going to transpire as they did in the game that are naturally divisive as a narrative, or if she means they're taking a deviation in the show that's going to divide kind of show watchers and game players.
Haven't they been on mostly on track with the show though? I mean, with the games.
They've been hitting every beat. That's every big beat that's happened in the game, but they've kind of added a little more flesh to everything and given most things a new aspect of uniqueness that they previously didn't have. So I'm just saying it right now. They have the ability to pivot at any moment with all the supplementary stuff they've added in the show. But they're still retaining the Last of Us story. They're doing a great job.
What are some non-spoiler things that they could do with the show and like take it to a different direction?
Well, I would point to how Joel as a character is examined in the game and the show. In both, he's closed off and reserved because, and this isn't really a spoiler, it's what kicks off, it's the reason the narrative happens, is the death of his original daughter. Well, you know what, I guess it is a spoiler if you've never played The Last of Us. But yeah, that leads him to being extremely closed off and reserved as a person in a post-apocalyptic environment. And 20 years pass in between the inciting incident and the rest of the game. So there's a 20-year gap that in the game is referred to as kind of Joel's dark years, where he would murder innocent people all the time for reasons that aren't given much depth. In the show, that's explored, and he's challenged on the things that he's done by the people around him. And he grapples with it internally. He has panic attacks and PTSD. He freezes up. when Ellie gets in danger, uh, which is these are all aspects that were not present in the game. You know,
Yeah.
uh, he's a little more sympathetic, I think, which makes me think, does she mean this is going to divide people when he does this really monstrous thing at the end? Or is she referring to a different kind of divisiveness? And like everything else we talked about today, I think only time will tell.
Yeah. How did you feel about the one episode where they added the DLC stuff from the first game?
I think it worked well because how the game originally did it was Joel gets injured at one point in the narrative, and there's another time jump where you aren't sure what happened. And then in the DLC later, that gap gets filled in when you're playing as Ellie. So you're playing as her while Joel is injured in the present, and that's also when she has her memories of that other character from the DLC, and that's what the DLC is, because you're in a mall in both instances, so that setting reminds her of this person she lost. So I think they picked a good time to do it. I was kind of wondering how they were gonna do that. If they were gonna treat it as an afterthought, kind of like the DLC. But I'm glad they integrated it into the story because in the original game, Ellie refers to her friend by name at the end of the game. She refers to the DLC character. So it makes sense that in the show they would show what happens in tandem, like thematically, at the time that, once again, Joel in the show is injured. Ellie has to take care of him. That's when she has the memories. So it worked. They kind of changed how those two interact with the infected. There was only one infected in the show, whereas in the game they were sort of attacked by a bunch of them. And I guess I can understand that. The effects, to me at least, on the clickers are practical. It's all makeup, and that's insane. Like, because they really went all out with like the fungal growth protruding out of their faces. And I don't understand how the actors see through those things.
Yeah. Do you one thing that you mentioned is with them like making a new season? Do you think they're gonna start adding or integrating things from the second game into the series, or do you
Yeah,
think it's too
and
soon?
I don't think we'll have to see how they close out with the season finale because I think I told you before they have not name dropped any part two characters in the show or implied that any of the alternative characters from that different setting that come in Last of Us Part 2 are going to show up yet. Now, obviously, that's to me now. I was wondering how long they were going to take to tell the story of the first game, but it seems like, yeah, this season finale is going to finish off the first game, which really only leaves room for stuff from the second game if you're continuing. And then I would ask, are they going to stick with the controversial way the second game opens? Um, and what would be interesting to see if audiences watching the show respond in the same way to how gamers responded. That would be interesting to see.
I think it'd be great to pivot where the next season it doesn't start with like the way that the first second game starts,
Mm-hmm.
but rather the with them establishing the second character,
I
the main
agree.
character. So
I think
basically, what they could have like what I wanted essentially from The Last of Us in the very beginning, where they because in the second game would have been great as a third game if they would have pulled a Metal Gear 2, and instead of seeing Joel, well, okay, if we're going video games, instead of playing as Joel and Ellie, you play as the character, the main the Abby from the second game,
mm-hmm.
and like it was like a fresh, like entirely new game, but just from from Abby, where you get acquainted with her motives, and like and how Joel intersects within her life, for her to then want to do the actions of the actual second game.
Yeah, and then yeah, I guess spoilers for Last of Us 2 now. That is a good point to make, because that I think a fair critique of the second game is that it is quite disjointed in the way it tells its story. Because it and here's what I think people don't talk about a lot is how they sacrificed narrative structure for feeling in the moment. Um, because the reason I think that controversial thing, Joel's death in Last of Us 2, takes place, they went with the abruptness of it and the confusion of it in order to kind of, they really, to me at least, I think they wanted to convey what it feels like to suddenly lose someone out of nowhere, um, for almost no good reason, which is something that does happen. And even though it doesn't feel very satisfying, does that mean it shouldn't be explored in storytelling? Maybe, maybe not. But also at the end, and what ruins this idea, which I still think is a superior story idea, is that Ellie's anger in the second game is fueled by the fact that she just started to forgive Joel the night before he dies. She was mad at him before that, so essentially her rage is fueled by guilt that she didn't spend his last few years with him as his like surrogate daughter when she could have. And that's that moment at the end that a lot of people called stupid at the time, but I think makes sense, is when she has a memory of Joel and then stops killing Abby. She's kind of reflecting on that, realizes she won't be happy when she kills her, as sort of Abby realizes she isn't happy after killing Joel. Um, but yeah, I feel like having it start like that and having Ellie's just beginning to forgive Joel anger would be hard to pull off. But I think it could be done.
Yeah,
It
well,
absolutely could be done.
we're gonna have to see what happens. Maybe the. Do you think the episode length is gonna change? It's gonna vary? Think it's gonna stay the same?
It's been varying. I think the longest was over an hour and a half, which was the pilot, and the shortest I think was like 47 minutes. So I imagine this finale is probably going to be like an hour and a half as well.
Damn.
I'd say the median is an hour. But yeah, they do vary, which is, I like that a lot. I like not sticking to the 10 episode, exactly 30-minute or 1 hour Netflix format.
Yeah, that's good. And once again, where would you want to watch the show?
Where would I want to watch it?
Yeah, for those who are very getting acquainted with that.
You would have to watch it on HBO Max. Um,
Legally, at least.
yeah. But yeah, that's the only place it is right now, and they're kind of, I think Bella Ramsey was in Game of Thrones as well. So they're just, I think they've got like their own repertoire.
Well, a lot of the characters are already from Game of Thrones, right? Like Pedro Pascal
Yeah.
was in Game of Thrones. Bella
Yeah.
Ramsey was in Game of Thrones. Seems like the
So yeah, it
cast
makes
tends to stick
sense.
together a lot of the time. But
But yeah, I'm excited, and you know what? Even if it doesn't turn out the way I like, and something horrible and controversial happens again, I'm excited to see that outcome too. I feel like there's no losing here.
seriously, it's gonna end up like Rick and Morty scale.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, um, I'm Retro Loneliness or Nick, and I'm here once again. Joined by and graced by my co-host, my stepbrother Jared from Midnight Labs. Really cool
That's me.
guy. You know, just a quick plug. I'm gonna be dropping my link tree down below, on right below the synopsis for you guys to check out. Is there anything that you're doing currently that you want to shout out?
I think it's cool you linked your link tree. I could link my link tree too. Um, but it only has my voiceover and audiobook stuff.
Yeah,
If
tell us about
anyone's
that.
interested in that. Well, it's my link tree links to all of the audiobooks that have been produced by me in collaboration with their authors. and I've been doing it for the past 7 months now. I have completed 5 now, so and they're ranging from sci-fi to fantasy. So if anyone's interested in that, I also have a link tree. It's good to hear you have one now too. I think it's a nifty little service that I discovered. Realizing the limitations Instagram has on links.
I completely agree. We should make that a topic on its own, man.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. All right, guys. Well, we'll catch you later.
Have a good one.